fellow South Africans, I'm addressing you this evening.
All your years of paying tax, you helped us overcome our darkest hour. You, along with every other loyal taxpayer, helped build this nation. Thank you for every life you saved and for every risk you braved, for giving our future generation a healthy start. When you saw many of our vulnerable communities, you provided for them. When you saw our healthcare workers on the front lines battling COVID, you rose to the occasion and gave them the tools to save lives. Without your tax compliance, we wouldn't be able to fight a good fight. Thank you for contributing to the important services our vulnerable communities rely on every day. To all taxpayers and traders, continue to pay your tax because it matters to millions of South Africans who depend on it. Your tax matters.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our webinar on interim reconciliations. My name is Millicent Khagane, and I'm an operational specialist within Specialized Audit. It is with great pleasure to be facilitating this webinar, and I hope that you will enjoy your time with us and it will provide guidance and understanding on employer reconciliations. Before we proceed with the program, please note the following. You'll be prompted to complete a short survey. Please complete this survey as we would like to get enough feedback on the quality of the information shared. Please post all your questions either on the Q&A, or you can also send your questions to interimrecon@sars.gov.za. This email address will only be available only for the duration of this webinar. Due to the fact, please do not post any personal information when asking any questions. We will try to answer as many questions as possible, either on the live Q&A, a panelist later during the webinar on the SARS website under the frequently asked questions. If you happen to experience load shedding, the webinar is live on YouTube and the recording can also be found on the YouTube channel. The presentation will be uploaded on the SARS website at the end of this webinar. Our program is divided into 3 parts. The first session is a presentation by an expert on interim reconciliations. It will be followed by the easy file and e-filing process. And the last part will be the Q&A session by a panel of experts for the questions posted on the email address. Remember, the email address is interimrecon@sars.gov.za. To kickstart the program of today, help me welcome our keynote speaker, Melanie Nell. Melanie Nell is a process engineer in the business design and engineering unit at SARS with over 18 years of experience. She began her SARS career as a business analyst, working closely with third-party vendors to develop an improved query resolution application for all customer-facing entities with the organization. She was also instrumental in developing the submission process for dividends tax, as well as other third-party data submissions. In recent years, she has been part of the modernization project for Pay-as-you-earn. Melanie holds a diploma in computer science from the Tshwane University of Technology. Over to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Madam Program Director. And thank you for the opportunity to address the audience tonight. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Recently, SARS has embarked on a journey to become smart, modern, with unquestionable integrity, who is trusted and admired by government, the public, as well as our international peers, and who provides a user experience that is seamless, intuitive, as well as customized and self-administered. To achieve this goal, SARS's strategic intent is to develop a tax and customs system based on voluntary compliance. To give effect to the strategic intent, SARS develops 9 strategic objectives. Tonight, we will be focusing on 4 of the strategic objectives. Firstly, make sure we provide clarity. The value of events like this webinar is critical in ensuring clarity, and it is encouraging to see so many people attending. We are also constantly updating the SARS website with new information, so make sure you check in from time to time. Secondly, making it easy for the taxpayer to comply and meet their obligations. There are various channels available to assist employers with the submission of monthly returns and their reconciliations. Thirdly, make it hard and costly for taxpayers to not comply by imposing pay-as-you-earn administrative penalties, identifying potential high-risk practices, and implementing mitigating measures, and in extreme cases, criminal prosecutions. Fourthly, modernizing our system. In the last few years, the focus was on the personal income tax side, and I am sure you would agree with me that SARS has come a long way from the days when everyone had to complete a manual document and stand in a queue to submit their return. Now the focus is shifting to pay-as-you-earn, and all I can say at this time is, watch this space. But what is pay-as-you-earn? Employees' tax refers to the tax required to be deducted by an employer from an employee's remuneration paid or payable. The process of deducting or withholding tax from remuneration as it is earned by an employee is commonly referred to as pay-as-you-earn.
Please be patient with us while you can go on, Melanie.
Every resident employer who pays or becomes liable to pay any amount by way of remuneration to any employee are obligated to deduct or withhold from that amount by way of a pay-as-you-earn an amount determined by the Commissioner of SARS. These amounts deducted or withheld must be paid by the employer to SARS on a monthly basis and must be accompanied by the monthly employer return. The monthly employer return is a declaration by the employer of the total payment owed to SARS, together with the allocation of the amount to pay-as-you-earn, skills development levy, unemployment fund contributions, and employer tax incentive if applicable. But which brings me to the role of employers. Did you know that most of the individual taxpayer revenue is collected through third parties, of which employers are the largest external stakeholder that integrate with SARS for purposes of administering tax on behalf of the institution? Their significant roles signify that their compliance levels have a far more reaching effect on the government's ability to deliver on its mandate. With pay-as-you-earn filing compliance at just under 60% and payment at about 95%, this remains an area of concern as employers contribute of pay-as-you-earn to the annual revenue collection through individual tax is just under 40%. I have already spoken about the monthly employer return submissions, and some of you may wonder why SARS is also requesting reconciliation submissions. The purpose of the reconciliation process is to allow an employer to review the total monthly employer returns, and if any discrepancies are identified, it provides an opportunity for the employer to correct these discrepancies when submitting the employer reconciliation. To further assist employers to ensure that the information submitted to SARS is correct and complete, SARS introduced a biannual and annual reconciliation process. It is also worthwhile to note that the reconciliation process is the only way for employers to claim any employment incentive refunds. During the employer reconciliation process, employers are required to submit an employer reconciliation declaration and employees' tax certificates that reconciles the employees' tax deducted or withheld from remuneration with the payments made to SARS, and including the total tax value of employees' tax certificates for the respective period. The employer reconciliation is also the mechanism that employers must use to submit the employees' tax certificates to SARS. SARS uses the employees' tax certificate information to pre-populate the employees' annual income returns. These certificates are locked on the ITR 12s, and employees cannot change this information. It is therefore imperative that the information submitted by employers to SARS is correct. The information on the certificates is also used by SARS for the auto-assessment of individual taxpayers. I sincerely hope that I have imparted to you the importance of your role as an employer, your contribution to the annual revenue collection, and the effect you have in the tax matters of your employees. I am confident that the rest of the webinar will address any concerns you may have regarding the 2022 biannual submission. But if you need any clarity regarding any aspect of the pay-as-you-earn processes, don't hesitate to make use of the channels available to you to ask your questions. And on that note, I am handing back to the Program Director.
Thank you, Melanie, for the wonderful welcome address. Employers indeed have a huge responsibility to ensure compliance with pay-as-you-earn, because not only are they seen as an extension of SARS, but pay-as-you-earn is one of the biggest contributors to tax. Remember to post all your questions on the live Q&A or on Interim Recon at sars.gov.za. We also have new e-filing features that are also available on the SARS Mobi app. If you have just joined us, don't worry. The full recording can be found on SARS YouTube channel. Next on our program will be Martin Naidu, who will take us through the presentation. Martin Naidu holds a diploma in information and technology from Oval International Technical College. He started his career at SARS in 2007 as a contact center agent dealing with income tax related queries. Because of his zest for learning, he received training on income tax, value-added tax, and pay-as-you-earn. In addition, he's a self-taught e-filing technical expert. In 2010, he joined branch operation engagements responsible for taxpayer education, outreach, and campaigns. His role within taxpayer education team entails giving tax education to individuals, practitioners, the government, and small businesses. He has also worked on developing training material for SARS. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Program Director. Good afternoon to one and all, and thank you all for joining us on this webinar. My name is Martin Naidu. I'm going to be taking you through the Interim Reconciliation Employer Filing Season 2022-08 period. Firstly, this presentation is merely to provide information in an easily understandable format and is intended to make provisions of legislation more accessible. Okay. When we look at our SARS vision, we would want to build a smart, modern SARS with unquestionable integrity, trusted and admired by government, the public, as well as our international peers. Melanie has spoken with regards to our strategic objectives, but if I had to take you down memory lane when it comes through to the reconciliation period, and it reminds me when I joined SARS, prior to the e-filing and the easy file software, the old method of submitting your reconciliation was coming through to SARS with a book that had 3 pages on it. One you will keep for yourself, one you'll keep for SARS, and the other which you will actually hand over to your employees. And prior to that, we also had where you had to come into a SARS office and provide a disk with your payroll files, and SARS would have then given you errors, which you have to then go back, rectify those errors, come back and do another test and then run a live. So SARS has modernized its systems for a long time to provide you with what we call a seamless and online digital service. Okay. So today's point of discussion, we'll talk about the introduction, we'll talk about EMP 501 channels, we'll briefly talk about administrative penalties, what is your obligation as an employer. We'll look at the general rules on the import file structure, what's updated on the validation rules, and what's new. So on a monthly basis, as an employer, you have an obligation to submit a EMP 201, which is a declaration which covers your PAYE, UIF, SDL for the month. Now, the employer reconciliation declaration, which is referred to as the EMP 501, comes part of where it incorporates your EMP 201s over a 12-month period. So when you look at your annual submission, that covers your periods from 1st of March up until the 28th, 29th of February. So that covers a 12-month period. Now, due to that, we have introduced the interim reconciliation period. Now, the first interim reconciliation took place on the 1st of September 2010 up until 29th of October 2010. That will have been for the 2011 tax year. Now, that will cover the interim period for the first 6 months of your tax year, namely the 1st of March up until the end of August. Now, the reason why we introduced the interim reconciliation is due to the fact prior to this, what employers used to do is if they picked up any discrepancies on their PAYE that happened during the course of that tax year, the only adjustment they would have made would have been in the February period. So we now, in the interim reconciliation period, we want you to ensure that you balance off for the first 6 months. That means your EMP 501s balance off with your EMP 201 figures that incorporates your IRP 5s and your IT 380 certificates where applicable. Okay, so we want you to ensure that you balance off for the first 6 months so that when you start doing your annual submission, you only just got 6 months to actually go ahead and balance off. Now, the EMP 501 submission channels, for those employers that are on very small scale that do not have a payroll system in place, you can go ahead and manually capture your IRP 5s on the easy file or the e-filing system. So if you are doing a manual capture on the e-filing system, you can capture up to a maximum of 50 certificates, whereas on the easy file system, you can capture 50 certificates or more. Right, so you'll capture it manually on the easy file software or the e-filing system, and you will submit your reconciliations electronically. Then if you're on a payroll system, you will then need to generate a payroll file, which will export from your payroll and import into easy file. And then you will need to then ensure that you EMP 501 then balances off with your certificate values, and then you can submit it using the e-filing online channel submission. Okay. However, also on e-filing, if you got up to you're on a payroll system and you have maximum of 50 certificates, then you can also then import your payroll file onto e-filing and do a submission electronically as well, as long as it does not exceed 50 certificates itself. Now, the current interim reconciliation period tax season started on the 19th of September and will close on the 31st of October 2022. So you still have some time to ensure that you meet your obligation and submit your interim reconciliation. Now, if you fail to submit your reconciliation on time, SARS is required to charge an administrative penalty that's up to 10% of the employee's tax liability, where an employer has failed to submit the EMP 501 by the declared time. That means if you submit any time after the 31st of October, then we would impose a penalty of up to 10%. We're now going to issue out a separate payment reference number. That payment reference number will be allocated to your account. So namely, if you have to make a payment to the account, we will first allocate the payment to the late penalty of 10%. And then we will do the allocation to the PAYE admin penalty first, then interest, then tax, and lastly, we'll allocate to the understatement penalty. Now, when we issue out the penalty, we will issue out a notice of penalty assessment, the EMP 301. You can locate this notice on the SARS e-filing system. On the left-hand side, if you firstly click on returns, then you click on the SARS correspondence menu on the left-hand side. Then under the sub-menu, you're going to click search correspondence. On the drop-down list, you're going to select notice penalty assessment EMP 301, and you can retrieve that notice. Okay, so an employer's obligation, firstly, for an annual submission, an employer has 60 days from the end of the tax year to submit an annual reconciliation. If the employer ceases to become an employer, then they have within 14 days to do a submission. Also, if you have an employee that's passed away, the employer has an obligation to provide a tax certificate to the executor of that deceased employee. That's in terms of paragraph 13(2)(b) of the 4th schedule of the Income Tax Act. Now, the employer has to submit that certificate within 14 days since that employee passed away. Now, why we're stating that is that that certificate will help the executor to actually manage and finalize that estate for that employee. You as an employer, you do not need to wait for the reconciliation period to issue out that certificate. You can do so within 14 days. Okay. Then we have what we refer to as a import file structure. Now, an import file structure is namely, when you're generating a certificate, we have to ensure that those certificates or the information or the fields on that certificate match specific rules. This will be accordance to our business requirement specification, right? So the following columns, headings will be there. You'll have your name, you'll have your code, you'll have your length. Okay, in the length, you have numeric fields. That means in these fields, only numerics can be. Then you have your alpha fields, then you have an alphanumeric fields, and then you have your free text fields. So ensure that when you're completing this and these fields, and when you're exporting the payroll file, that you meet the requirements according to our business requirements specifications. Also, we will have validation rules. Okay, so let's paint a picture. On your payroll system, you are required to export a payroll file that incorporates your certificates for all your employees. Okay, that payroll file is then required to be imported into the easy file system or the e-filing. Now, there would be a validation that we would go through. Okay, and now each field has a specific validation rules. Okay, for example, there would be fields that would be mandatory. That means in this field, it must always be completed. Then you have conditional rules, okay, where in these fields must always be completed under defined conditions, else the value must not be reported on the certificate itself. And then you have optional, that means implying the field can be completed if possible. And if optional fields are completed, we will do a full validation on this field, and any other fields that's linked to that code will become mandatory. So we have done some updates on specific rules and specific fields. Okay, so we've updated the employer contact email address. We made changes to the income tax reference number rules, the employer contact email addresses. When it comes to directives, it'll be the directive number, the issue date, the income source codes, and the income amount. And then we covered the employee tax incentive, the monthly calculated, and the ETI qualifying 12-month indicator cycle. We've also introduced new fields. So you'll find some new fields on the certificates, like example, the directive type indicator, long service award, and the long service cash award. Now, what are the updates and what are the changes that we made? So when it comes to the employer contact email address, okay, the following characters are not allowed. That means when you are capturing the email address, ensure that you don't have open brackets, closed brackets, backslashes, apostrophes, singles, inverted commas, pipes, and percentage. Because if you do have this in the email address, it'll fail a validation and it'll kick out an error or an warning itself. Okay. Then when it comes to the income tax reference number, now previously it was mandatory, now it's a conditional with rules. What does that mean? If the certificate type is an IRP5 and the PAYE is 0, that means 0 on the certificate, and the PAYE on retirement lump sum and severance benefits is greater than 0, then the income tax number is optional on that certificate. However, if the tax certificate is an IRP5 and PAYE is greater than 0, then the income tax number becomes mandatory. All right. Then we look at your IT3A certificate. So if you have an IT3A certificate and if you have code 02 where it earns less than the threshold, or 04 where it's non-taxable earnings, then the income tax number becomes optional. If it's anything either than the 02 or 04, then the income tax number is mandatory. Then when we refer to the income received, now this is applicable for the 2023 year of assessment, where an amount which is paid or payable to an employee for services rendered, excluding any long service cash awards, is required to be declared under the following codes: 3622 and 3672. Okay. Then when we refer to the employer and employee email address, it follows the same rule as the employer contact email addresses on characters that are not allowed. However, where the services of the employee is terminated for any reason, the new contact details are available, then the new contact details must be provided to SARS. Okay, so when it comes to directives, now for lump sum directives issued for source code as defined in the validation rules, all directive information fields must be completed. When it comes to fixed PAYE rate and amount directives, only the directive number and the directive type indicator must be completed. Now, when we refer to a directive number, now, where do we get that directive number from? The employer or the fund administrator would submit a directive to SARS. Okay, and SARS will issue out a directive in regards to that employee or that taxpayer. Now, the directive number we're referring to that needs to be included in the certificate will be as of the directive number on the directive that SARS has issued out. Okay, so the number of directives issued by SARS, either relating to the lump sum income or a fixed rate or fixed amount to be deducted for PAYE. Okay, so there's a conditional rule that we have. If the transaction year is less than 2022, then the code can be repeated up to a maximum of 3 times. If the transaction year is greater than and equal to 2022, then the directive number can be repeated up to 5 times. Also, the directive type indicator which we've introduced, okay, this directive type indicator specifically points out whether one, it's a L for a lump sum directive or an F for a fixed PAYE rate or amount directive. And it's only applicable for transactions years that are greater than equal to 2022. Okay, directive issue date as well, that you will get off the directive that SARS issues out. And if the directive number is completed, then the field must not be completed. It must consist of the 8 numeric characters in the following format. It will be your year, your month, and then your date. And is only applicable for transactions years that are greater than equal to 2022. Now, the directive income source code and a directive income amount, also, you will get that directly from your directive that SARS issued out. So when it comes to the directive income source code, if it is not completed, then the field must not be completed, and the additional source codes must be utilized. Now, these source codes you will find on the directive itself, and also the directive income amount. If the directive number is not completed, then the field must not be completed, and this is only applicable from the transaction year that's greater than equal to 2022. Now, when we come to employee tax incentive, remember employee tax incentive introduced on the 1st of April, 2014. Now, the ETI qualifying 12-month cycle indicator, it refers to the 2 tables of calculation when you're calculating ETI for your employee. So you have your first 12 month and your second 12 month. So if the year of assessment is greater than equal to 2023, then option 1 and option 2 is only applicable if the ETI employment date is on or after the 1st of October, 2013. Okay, so remember, if you look at the rules of ETI, it's for qualifying employees that were employed on or after the 1st of October, 2013, and they had to meet specific requirements in order for you to claim the ETI for them. Okay. When you're calculating the ETI, right, if the year of assessment is less than 2021 and the ETI qualifying 12-month cycle indicator is 1, that means it's the first table that we will utilize, then the value cannot be greater than 1,000. That means it's capped on that. So if you have a cycle as indicated as 1, and if you have a value that's greater than 1,000, okay, then it's going to have an error. Also, if the year of assessment is less than 2021 and the ETI qualifying 12-month cycle indicator is 2, then a value cannot be greater than 500. So it's actually capped at 500. Okay, so let's look at what's new and what changes have come through. Now, the current release note for EasyFile is for version 7.2.9. This was released on the 3rd of October 2022. Okay, this goes in line with your business requirement specification version 21.1. This employer reconciliation covers the 2022 to 2023. It covers the 2023 annual and the biannual. Okay, now when we release or change a version when it comes to EasyFile, it could be because there could have been some errors that were picked up on production, and we needed to amend those so that the employer doesn't have these errors going forward. So what have we changed and what have we done? If you previously tried to do a full resubmission request, all right, and you experienced some problems and interruption and you couldn't proceed, okay, the version 7.2.9 has been updated so you don't have that problem going forward, all right? Also, on the over and understatement declaration field, you were not allowed to capture on that, specifically on the new EMP 501. Now on the current version, it should allow you to do so. And we've made adjustments to the annual capture validations to align with the import and pre-submission validation rules, as per what I've actually mentioned when it refers to the business requirement specification version 21.1. Also, we made adjustments to correct the message type displayed on the ETV letters that you will find on the notification center on the EasyFile software itself. Okay, so we've also made adjustments to the directive tables on the IRP5 manual capture screen to include the directive type. Okay, as I said, that's a new specification on that. For employers that wanted to submit future data reconciliations, on the drop-down list, we've added any other reasons whereby we allow a free text where you can choose that and you can type in any information that relating to a reason why you're submitting a future data reconciliation. Okay, we've also updated and enhanced the response messages when it comes to the 201s and the 501s on the PAYE account status. And we've also adjusted the full resubmission request process to allow the submissions where the duplicate submission check previously resulted in an error message, okay? And adjustments that we included to the submission dates on the EMP 201 and EMP 501, specifically when you try to do a revised submission or a request for correction. Now, SARS has gone through a go digital routes. So to make it easier for you as an employer or as a taxpayer, we actually encourage you to utilize our digital platforms. So you can download the latest EasyFile version, register for e-filing, or alternatively use our SARS online query system if you have any other queries. We also have our social media platforms that you can go onto, like our LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And for any other information regarding the 2022-08 interim reconciliation period, you can go onto our SARS website. That's www.sars.gov.za, and you can get a wealth of information that's available for you. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for allowing me to address you all today. I'm going to be handing over to my colleague Fulufelo Mandiwana, and he will be taking you through the EMP 501 reconciliation process. Thank you.
Good evening to all our viewers, and thank you, Martin, for the lovely introduction and also the lovely presentation with regarding to the submission of the record. So after that nice presentation, I will be taking through our viewers with the process of how to install EasyFile, how to do the submission on EasyFile. So basically, I'll be covering the basic navigation. So the first process that we're going to look at today is how do you download the new version of EasyFile. So the first process that I'm going to explain is that there are new users and there are already existing users. For existing users, what you require to do, you need to make sure that when you are running on an older version, you need to first make a backup. Once you have made your backup, that's when you would start the process of downloading the new EasyFile platform. So where do we download the new EasyFile platform? You would go to your Google Chrome or whichever browser that you are using. Once you click on the browser that you are using, you then type in the SARS e-filing homepage, which is www.sarsefiling.co.za. Then on the SARS e-filing homepage, that's where you would find the icon for EasyFile Employer, which you can start the process of downloading EasyFile. Once you click on the download icon, it will bring you to the following screen. On this particular screen, that's where you would find all other products that we are offering with regarding to EasyFile, where you would find the downloading of the software, and also you'd be able to download the Adobe Reader, so you can have the correct Adobe Reader that will be compatible to your machine or to EasyFile. Also, you would need the zip utility, which means that the zip utility will allow you to be able to extract or open the download file that you would have downloaded. So this is the correct version of the zip file that you must use. Also, if you need, or if you are a first-time user of EasyFile, we do have a guide that you can use for you to be able to use the system a little bit much better. So how do you do the download? You would click on download. Once you click on download, you would find this note, which it will be explaining the whole process that you need to follow. As you can see, it says before you can start this process, you need to make sure you make a backup on your current PAY information on your computer. Because remember, EasyFile is a system base. So what do we mean when we say it's a system? It means that the information or the data is stored on your machine. So if you don't have a backup, it basically means that your data would be lost. So that's why this particular note is very important when you're downloading the new version. Then you would click on yes. Once you click on yes, it will open up this form for you, which you need to complete in order for you to start the process of downloading the application. Once you're done completing the information, you would then click on agree. Once you have clicked on agree, then you click on proceed. It will start the downloading. Once it's done downloading, it will either be saved on your desktop or it will be saved under your download folder. In this particular instance, we saved it on our desktop. So you would find the zip file that's written setup EMP, whichever version, that would be the latest version that we would have released. So once you double click on it, it will be opened as long as you've got the correct zip file. Then you would find a setup employer, so setup file. Once you double click on the setup file, it will then start running the application, where you need to click on run application. Once you click on run application, it will give you the welcome screen to EasyFile Employer. That's where you would see that you have downloaded the correct version that you need to install. As per the previous speaker, we are currently on 7.2.9. So you need to make sure that it's welcoming you to 7.2.9. Once you have confirmed that you can start by clicking next. Once you click next, you need to read the terms and conditions so that you can understand what the software is offering and also the rules with regarding to the software. Once you accept the terms and condition, you can be able to click on install. Once you click on install, it will then give you a pop-up message to say that you can start installing the EasyFile software. It will give you a warning on installation with regarding to the version. So you just need to read and understand what is it talking about. As you can see, most of our screens, they emphasize with regarding to a backup. Then you would click on OK, and then the process will start by installing the Zulu Java. So you need to make sure that you allow the Zulu Java to install, because that is the application that is compatible to EasyFile so that it can run properly. Once it's done installing the Zulu Java, it will then start installing the Adobe Air. So if you don't have the correct version of Adobe Air, it will run the application. Once it's done, you can be able to click on close. or if you already have an existing Adobe Air, which is compatible to EasyFile, you would just get a pop-up message for you to tell you that you've got the correct version. You just need to click on close. Once you click on close, it will then pop up a screen to say now it's going to install EasyFile. If you already have EasyFile installed on your machine, it will then give you this particular screen to say, would you like to replace the version that is currently installed on your machine? Then you would click on replace. Once you click on replace, it will run the application. Once it's done running the application, it will pop up this particular screen. So I'm going to explain for the purpose of those people that are new users. So with the new users, when you install EasyFile, it will not give you this welcome screen. It will give you a welcome screen where you need to create your usernames and your passwords. So that's the welcome screen that you will get as a first-time user. Once you captured your login details or created your users, then you would get this particular screen. On this particular screen, you would have a button to log in. You would have a button to click on forgot password in case you forgot your password. You would have a secure reminder, which means that if you don't, when you click on forgot password, when you get the hint, you are not able to remember your password, you can be able to click on secure reminder, which will then allow you to retrieve the password using your e-filing credentials. Then you've got an option to restore a backup for those who already previously were using EasyFile and they've got a backup, you would be able to restore your backup. Once you've done restoring your backup, EasyFile will close and it will open again. Once it opens again, then you put in your login credentials. Once you put in your login credentials and you click on login, it will then pop up this particular screen. For first-time users, it will be blank. It will not have any database created. For the ones that already have a backup already restored, it will then reflect all their clients that are reflecting on EasyFile. Then they will have to select the employer that they want to work on. Once they've selected the employer that they want to work on, they can then be able to click continue. Once they click on continue, they will get a pop-up message that your EasyFile employer has been changed to the current employer that you are working on. Once you have done that, that means now you would be able to see the home screen of EasyFile. So this is the welcome screen where you would find notification center, you would find action center. So under notification center, you would find all your letters, you would find all your agent appointments, you would find your text numbers that you have applied for when you synchronize. Under action center, that's where now if you are selected for audit, you will be able to upload your supporting documents in order for your audit to be finalized. Then you would have this e-filing registration. It's for those users that probably have never registered for e-filing. They can just click on this e-filing link. Then it will take them to the e-filing for them to register for e-filing. Then we've got import payroll file, which is an option for you to import your CSV file if you are using a payroll system as an employer. For the employers that do not have a CSV file, they do not have to worry. We do cover that particular option for them to add the employer manually. Then we've got employee admin. Under employee admin, it's where you can add your employees manually, and you can also view the employees or the IRP files that you have imported on your CSV file. Then we've got PAYE under monthly processes. This particular option is where you can submit your EMP 201 on EasyFile, because now we do have an option to submit on e-filing and also on EasyFile your EMP 201s. You would notice that with the current version now, we do validate whether you have submitted your EMP 201s. So if you have not submitted your 201s, EasyFile will prompt you to first submit your EMP 201s, which you can utilize this particular function on EasyFile to do your submission. We do have an option also to make payments. You have to make payments using EasyFile, which will link to your e-filing. Under reconciliation, we've got the PAYE dashboard, which gives you the status of your submission. We've got declaration, that's where you do your submission. We have cancel certificate range in case when you want to cancel a range of certificates. We've got also adjustments, which currently normally we use it when we want to adjust certain figures on our declaration. We've got also summary report, which allows us now, because back in the days, we used to have issues with employers that do not have a CSV file, and now they need to rectify certain information. The summary report, it allows you to download the information on EasyFile so that you can create a CSV file for you to resubmit. Then you've got your submission option. This is an option where you submit your declaration. We've got third-party appointments. This is where you find your agent appointments or your AA88s. Under view employer admin, basically this is an option where you edit, update, or add an employer if you do not have a CSV file. Utilities, it's where now we're going to cover more information with regard to how do you generate IRP5s and how do you make a backup. Synchronize application. This process is when you are linking your EasyFile to e-filing. As we know that EasyFile is an offline platform, it only becomes online when you're doing a submission. So that's where now the synchronized application comes in. So now I'm just going to take you through the navigation process as I've already explained the links. So we're going to start with the synchronized application. Synchronized application, once you click on synchronized application, it will bring you to this particular screen where you need to put in your e-filing login credentials so that you can link your e-filing to your EasyFile. This basically means that it's going to pull all the letters for all the clients that are linked to your e-filing. I know currently most employers, they are not yet familiar with the new process that has been introduced on e-filing due to the fact that now e-filing has migrated to say now you need to use one primary login to access e-filing. So when you use this particular functionality, you would use your primary login to synchronize all your other portfolios that are linked to your e-filing. Once you capture your login details, you would click on login. Once you click on login, you will get this pop-up message. Once you synchronize, you click on synchronize for all. Once you click on synchronize for all, then you click on sync. Once you click on sync, it will start the process of synchronization. Basically, as you can see, it will tell you if you've got multiple party IDs or multiple portfolios. It will start by telling you how many clients it's going to synchronize. Once it's done completing, you would find this pop-up message that synchronization complete. Once you click on OK, that means the process of synchronization is complete. Then you would have to go to Notification Center. Under Notification Center, that's where now you would find all your letters as per this example. Once you find all your letters and you click on the letter, once you open the letter, you will see it will give you a list of letters. Once it's done giving you the list of letters, once you open the letter, it will then create the database for you for the employer that you want to work on. Once you click on OK, it means that the information has been synchronized. Also, your IT registration information will be linked to your employees. Then now we're going to cover how to import. Once you click on import payroll file, you will get a pop-up message that says, please select an option to continue, which is either importing a payroll file or exporting a payroll file. Once you click on import, it will tell you only files saved on your local disk can be imported. That is very important, this particular message. If you import a payroll file that is linked, you have saved it on your server, you are bound to have issues because now EasyFile is a local disk system. Now, when you import a file from your server, it means that there is a possibility that it will lose the file path. So that's why we encourage you to always import the CSV file on your desktop or on your local disk. Once you click on OK, you will see the CSV file. Once you select the CSV file where you have saved it, you open it, it will start the process. Once it starts the process, it will tell you the payroll file is ready for import. Once you click on OK, then you will get the next message that the file is ready for import. And then you click OK, it will start running the validation. As per my previous colleague, he has explained that when it runs validation, it will run the validation according to the business requirement rules, which is the BRS. that normally you would find on our SARS website so that you can check. Once it's done running the validation, whether the file passed validation or whether the file failed validation, you would get a pop-up message. If it passed validation, it will tell you that it passed validation either with warnings or without warnings. If it failed validation, it will tell you it failed validation. Once you click on OK, it will then give you a message like this. If it passed validation, it will say successfully imported. Once you click on OK, it will then bring you under this particular function under utilities. When it brings you to this functionality, you would then be able to see whether the file has passed validation or it has failed validation. If it has passed validation and you click on it, it will then show you the total number of certificates that the CSV file that you have imported has imported. So it means that if you've got 100 employees, it will give you that it's got 136 employees. If you've got 1 employee, it will show you that it's only 1 employee. Then once you click on close, that means the process is complete. Then you need to validate whether the employer information has pulled through correctly from your payroll system before you can proceed. How do you do that? You need to go to employer admin. Under employer admin, you click on view edit employer. Once you click on view edit, this is particular screen where you would be able to click on edit employer, and then you would be able to see the demographical information of the employer for you date. Now, for those employers that do not have a CSV file to import, they would follow the same process where they would come to employer admin and click on view edit and change. Once they click on it, this particular screen will pop up. That's where now they would be able to add the employer information. Once they're done adding the employer information, they can be able to click on save. Once they click on save, it basically means that the information would be created for that employer. Then what is the next step after doing this? For those who are importing a CSV file, they need to go to employee admin to validate the information of the certificates, that the certificates are showing as created or they are showing as incomplete. Now, for those employers that captures IRP files manually or they're adding employees manually, they would follow the same process by coming under employee admin and click on view edit employee. Once they click on view edit employee, they would see this particular screen where they need to add the employee information. Once they capture the employee information, you click on next. You would see each and every field that has an asterisk on it. It basically makes it important or it is compulsory. You need to complete, because if you don't complete it, it means that your information will fail validation. Then you would complete the demographical information, contact information, whether it's new contact information or updated in contact information. That's where you would update the information. Then you would add the banking details. As you can see, it is compulsory for you to update the banking details. So you need to choose what type of a bank account it is. Once you're done, you would click on save. Once you have clicked on save, it means that the information will appear as saved like this in this particular example. Then you have an option to add certificate manually if you are not using a CSV file. For those who are using a CSV file, you would see that the certificate will be showing there with the transaction year or the recon period and the certificate number. Then you would be able to edit the certificate, or you can check the certificate codes whether they have updated correctly. For new employers that do not have a CSV file to import, they would then click on add certificate. Once you click on add certificate, this particular screen is where now you would be able to add the certificate information. You would be able to add the transaction year. You would then be able to add the period of reconciliation. You would then, once you select the transaction or the transaction year, once you select the period of reconciliation, you would see it will link the pay-as-you-earn number, the period, and it will have the rest of the certificate number because it needs to meet a specific length. Then you would have an option to select a final certificate. So why do we have this particular option? So now, because we are doing the biannual submission, which is our interim reconciliation, for those employers For an example, I'll do an example. As a fund, you find that you've got a directive for somebody that retired. Now, the directive now, you need to create a final certificate. So once you select the transaction year and you select the interim reconciliation year period, which is the 08, you can then be able to click on a final certificate, which will create this file to be a final certificate. Then you select the certificate type, whether it's an IRP5, whether it's an IT3A. Then you select the period of reconciliation or period worked, which it can be either 365 days, or you can put in 12, or you can put in 8 months, or you can put in 6 months based on the period worked. Then you will have pay period in transaction year. It will either be 6 months, or it will either be 12 months in the transaction year, or it will be 365 days. Now, employment date. Employment date, you would only complete the employment date if you are claiming for ETI. If you do not claim ETI or you don't have ETI, you do not have to capture the employment date, because once you select the employment date, you would be automatically telling the system that you want this particular employee, you need to capture the ETI. Then you would have tax period start date. So it will depend on the pay period worked for your start date. So if the person started working from the 1st of March, you would then select the start date as from the 1st of March. If the person started in the middle of the transaction year, you will select the date according to the date of the start. Then we have a tax period end date, which this particular update, it's either 20, whichever period on February 28, or either the date of termination of the employee. That's where now you choose that particular date. It's very important to choose the correct date, because it will validate with a tax period. Because if you don't choose the correct start date and end date, it will then have an issue with the employee when they submit in their certificate. Then we've got voluntary overdeduction. Voluntary overdeduction, you only use this particular function when you have overpaid or overdeducted. For an example, if an employee came to you because they've got, for an example, widow's pension, and they ask you as an employer to deduct extra tax so that they do not owe SARS when they submit their final return or the ITR 12, you would then tick the voluntary overdeduction. Fixed rate taxation, this option, you only select it for employees that are commission earner or freelancers that have applied for a fixed rate tax directive. As per the previous speaker also, he has advised that we have introduced a validation option now where we validate the tax directive information so that we can make sure that the information that you are capturing matches what we have on the system. You would then click on the plus sign. It will then ask you to put in the date, the tax directive number, and you need to choose the tax directive type, whether it's a L or it's an F. L, it means that it's a lump sum. F, it means that it's a fixed rate tax directive. Then you would put in the amount in order for it with the income source code that you would have captured for the tax directive. Then for those employers that claiming ETI, once you click on the ETI box, it will then allow you to add ETI where you need to complete the ETI amounts as per the previous speaker has already elaborated on the amounts, how you need to capture them. Then you need to select the employer SIC code, which is also mandatory in order for us to know what does the company do or under which category does the business fall under. For an example, if you are under construction, you would then choose the SIC code for construction with the code for it so that we can see that you fall under construction. Then you would see under the certificate, it will show you the certificate status, whether it's incomplete, whether it's created, whether it's submitted. Then you would have the date created, which it will show you when did the certificate or when was the certificate created. Then you would have the certificate source. The certificate source will show you whether it was a manual certificate or it was a CSV file that was imported. So it will show you the source, and then you would have the date of submission. It will show you when was the certificate submitted over to SARS. Then how do you add your source code after you have captured the first part of the certificate? You would then click on Manage Source Code. Once you click on Manage Source Code, this pop-up screen will appear. So you've got an option to filter for your source code. Once you type in a source code there, it will then give you a description to say, the source code that you have captured, it's this particular source code. So we try to make it easier for you to know what source code are you using so that you can make sure that you are using the correct source code. Once you're done adding all your source code, then you would, once you enter amount, you would click on Add Source Code. Then that particular source code that you have added, it will reflect under income received, and it will either reflect under deductions, or it will reflect under tax credits or tax liability. Once you click on add source code, it will then come back to this particular screen. Once you're done, you need to, yes.
No, I think my network, okay, continue.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that disturbance. Okay, what happens is that now once you're done, you can click on Save Certificate. Once you save the certificate, you will then see the status. It will tell you whether the certificate is created or is it incomplete. Once it's created, you then clap your hands. Now you are ready to submit. So now we're going to look at the process of submitting your declaration. You would go under reconciliation. Then under reconciliation, you would click on declaration. Once you click on declaration, you would then be able to see all the information with regarding to your declaration. Then you would complete your declaration. Once you complete your declaration, you would then be able to see when you click on request declaration, it will then ask you to put in your e-filing login details. Once you put in your e-filing login details, sorry about that. Once you put in your e-filing login details, then it will allow you to continue with this particular screen. And once you select accept data or own values or reinstate ETI. So basically with accept data, that's what we always encourage you to use, because if you don't use accept data, it basically means that now you're going to capture the information manually, which may happen that your information may not match what we have on the system. So we encourage you to always use accept data. When do you use the reinstate ETI? You only use the reinstate ETI in cases where now you submitted your EMP 501 and then you amended your ETI in error and you made it a 0, for an example. Now you want SARS to reinstate that particular ETI because you submitted in error. That's when you would click on reinstate ETI. So let's look at when you accept data, what process you need to follow. Once you click on accept data, it will bring you to this particular screen where you need to put in your e-filing login credentials. Once you capture your e-filing login credentials and you click on login, it will then open your declaration, which is the form. As we look at the form, it will give you all the demographical information of the employer. You need to capture all the details of your information, contact information. Then you go to financial particulars. Under financial particulars, that's where now you would see all your PAYE liabilities, like your declaration on your EMP 201s. So it will have your pay-as-you-earn, SDL, UIF liabilities, and it will have the totals. Then you will see automatically with the current submissions, we are automatically pre-populating the payments that you would have made, which would include any penalties and any interest that have been paid. So you would compare your monthly liabilities with your 201s. Once you are happy with all that information, you would then go down to the next screen where you would be able to see if there's any difference between your annual total and your tax certificate. If there's a difference between your annual total, whether it's a negative or it's a positive, you would see it under difference in total liability. If it's a positive, it means that your certificates are more than what you declared on your EMP 201s. If it's a negative, it means your certificates are less than what you have declared on your EMP 201s. Now, we also introduce a validation to say, if you captured amounts on your 201s, but you never created certificates, you would see this particular block, it will be highlighted in red, meaning that we are telling you that you have not created certificates. You would need to add your certificates in order for you to proceed with the declaration. So same applies. If you created certificates, but you never captured any amounts on your 201s, it means that your annual total will be highlighted in red, saying that you need to have a value under that particular field because there are certificates. Once you're done confirming that information, you would then be able to see the declared liability, whether it's what you have declared, then it will reflect here under due by you or to you, whether it's a credit or whether it's a liability. Please remember this, that whatever that you see due to you or due by you, if it's a minus, it doesn't mean that that money is going to be a refund. It can happen that you might have underestimated on your IRP5s, but it's creating a credit which can be validated when your declaration is being submitted, which it can go for audit or it can be routed for manual intervention. So once there's a credit here or there's a liability, you would be required to provide a reason why there's a difference in liability or why there's an amount that you need to pay. Once you're done providing us with your reasons, then you can be able to click on file. Once you click on file, it will bring you to this particular screen to say employer declaration, it's ready to file. Once you click on OK, it will then tell you that now you need to go to the submission screen to do your declaration. To submit what you have declared, you would then have to come to submission. Once you click on submission, you would see your declaration reflecting here, and it will tell you that an online validation is required. It's now SARS validating your EMP 501 also with your certificate to check whether they meet the business requirement rules. Once you tick the box and you click on submit, it will then give you ask you to select the destination folder where you're going to save the EMP 501 that you're submitting. Once you selected the destination folder, you click on, you select. Once you click on select, it will then pop up this particular screen where you need to put in your e-filing login credentials. Remember, I told you, EasyFile is an offline software. It only becomes online when you're doing your submission. Once you tick accept your terms or your declaration, accept the terms and conditions, you then put in your e-filing login credentials. Once you click on login, it will then start the process of validating and submitting your data. Once your data has been accepted and we are happy with every information, the system is happy, you would see, it will say your EMP 501, EMP 601, EMP 701 is being submitted. So basically what it means, it's when you cancel an IRP5, it means it automatically creates a 601 for you. If you have done any adjustment, it will then create an EMP 701. Once you click on OK, it means that your submission is sent to SARS. Now you need to validate whether the information that you submitted has pulled through to SARS. How do you do that? You would then come to your PAYE dashboard. Under PAYE dashboard, you would then be able to select the employer. Once you select the employer, select the reconciliation period. Once you have selected the reconciliation period, then you would be able to see this particular screen. Now I'm going to tell you how the screen works. Under EMP 201 returns and payments allocation, it will show you what you have declared on your 201s, the value and the payments and how they were allocated. And if there's any difference or if there's any shortfalls. If it's a negative, it means that you have overpaid. If it's a positive, you have short paid. Then on the next screen here, it's a comparison between your EMP 201 and the 501. So it means that whatever that you captured on the 501, it will then validate with the 201 submitted on e-filing or manually at the branch. You would see if there's a difference, it will show you the difference at the bottom. Then it will run a comparison between the 501 and the certificate. So if there's a difference between the two, it will show you the difference at the bottom. Then it will validate also the difference between the certificates and the payments. If there's a difference between the two, you would see it there, whether it's a positive or it's a negative. The most important part on this particular screen, it's the certificates. This particular screen, it will show you how many certificates have been submitted. So it means that if you have submitted 100 certificates, you need to see 100 certificates. If you submitted 10 certificates, it will show you 10 certificates have pulled through to SARS. If it doesn't show you any certificates here, it means that there are no certificates submitted. You may have to resubmit your declaration. So that is it with regarding to checking your declaration on the dashboard. So now we're going to just cover if you want to cancel certificate range. So how do you cancel a certificate range? You just click on cancel certificate range. Once you select cancel certificate range, you would then have the option to cancel your certificate. You choose either cancel or revive on the action, select the period, then you select the start range and the end range, you add on list, it then reflects here. Once you're done doing that, you need to click on cancel. Once you click on cancel, it will then give you this particular screen. It will confirm the total number of certificates canceled and the value. When you say yes, it will tell you the cancel certificate range is successful. Once you click on OK, it means that your certificates are canceled. They are not submitted, they are canceled on EasyFile. You still need to go back and submit your declaration in order for the 601 to pull through to the SARS system. If you've made an error and you cancel the wrong range, you can then click on cancel certificate range, where you can be able to click on revive. Once you click on revive, you can then be able to revive the certificate range. And then once you're done reviving the certificate range, you need to submit your declaration. That's very important. So that is it with regarding to canceling the certificate range. Now I'm going to show you how do you restore and how do you make a backup. You would then go to utilities. Under utilities, you've got an option to backup DB directory, match EasyFile DB, and restore EasyFile DB. So basically, this is where you make your backup for your EasyFile. So it is very important to use this functionality every time when you do any amendments and submitting your declaration so that you can have a latest backup. Once you've got the latest backup, you are happy. Then if you need to restore the backup, you log in, you can restore the backup on this particular screen or on the login page. Then you've got under utilities, the EMP 501 dashboard, which this dashboard is where now you can be able to see the status of your submission. Once you click on update, it will then show you this particular screen where you would be able to check whether your declaration has been accepted by SARS. Once you click on OK, you would see here, it will tell you the EMP 501 declaration has been successfully submitted, your declaration has been processed, and your reconciliation has been finalized. If it's been routed for manual assessment, know that it's been selected for audit. So that is it about the dashboard. What else can you check on utilities? It's also now you can be able to generate your IRP files for you to be able to provide to your employees in order for them when they need to submit their ITR12. You would click on generate IRP 5, select this particular screen. You would see that there would be your submission. Tick the box, click on export. Once you click on export, it will give you this particular screen. You always click on all. You click on export, then it will export the file to wherever you want to save it, and then you can access all those certificates there. Once you click OK, that means you are done with generating your IRP files. Before we wrap up the session with regarding to how the system works, I know that you are having challenges with the forms viewer and also opening certain declarations because you do not, it tells you that you do not have the correct Adobe. What you need to do, you just need to come to this particular screen, come under system configuration. Then once you click on system configuration, you would then be able to find the option for you to be able to click on this particular button, Adobe Reader or the PDF Reader. This box, when you tick it, it means that it will allow EasyFile to run any Adobe or any forms that you want to open on EasyFile, like your EMP 501 or your IRP 5s. You can click this box, then it will allow you to view your saved declaration or your IRP 5s. You need to also make sure that you've got the correct Zulu Java by checking on the file path. And also you need to check the file path for your forms viewer if it is there. And that brings me to the end of the session with regarding to EasyFile. I would be handing over back to my colleague Ayanda, who would be taking us through the presentation on how to navigate on e-filing. Thank you. Over to you, Ayanda.
Thank you so much, Fulufelo, for that wonderful explanation on how to complete the declaration on EasyFile and the general application. So thank you for that. Mine is to share the e-filing reconciliation process. I'm only going to look at the manual process on how to complete the reconciliation from SARS e-filing. By way of introduction, my name is Ayanda Takela. I am the support manager for SARS e-filing as well as EasyFile. You would have seen that on the live chat, we've got Noktula Mbata, who's one of our support consultants, who I'm sure you've seen that she's also been robust in engaging you on all of your e-filing and EasyFile questions. So we appreciate those questions and please keep them coming through. Brief overview of what I will discuss this evening is accessing the reconciliation through SARS e-filing, creating the employer, creating certificates, submitting the reconciliation, as well as where do you go to access the pay-as-you-earn dashboard. Now let's look into how do you go about requesting that reconciliation from SARS e-filing. You would select returns at the top, then returns issued on the left, from the left menu, and then select employees tax, which is EMP 501. Select the period with which you want to submit from the drop-down list, and then you're going to click on open on the EMP, and then this will open up the EMP 501 web page. So from your e-filing, you'll click on returns at the top, returns issued on the left, employees and tax certificates EMP 501. Select the actual reconciliation period that you want to submit. Click on request return. The below will show the employer that you've requested, as well as the period you've requested. Just verify there. Then you click on open to access the income tax web page. Please note that if you've selected a final reconciliation before the 1st of March, the following screen will be displayed, where you will be required to provide the reasons why you are submitting this final reconciliation. So this should only be done for exceptional cases where the company is either liquidated, winding up, insolvent, it is an estate case, or the company is dormant. So on the actual warning message, you'll see there it states, you have selected a reconciliation period in the future. Do you want to continue? It is important to select yes or no. And if you do select yes, please provide the reason, and then you click on submit. After accessing the EMP 501 web page, click on the EMP 501 link to actually open up the declaration. The employer will now be able to complete the certificates once the EMP 501 is opened. Very important to note, for an example, if you submitted the 2208 recon on EasyFile, and now you go and select to submit the very same period, 2208 on e-filing, you will receive a warning message to state that you can only submit on one channel. So for an example, you submitted 2208 on EasyFile, and now you want to correct that declaration and you go into e-filing, this is the message you would get. So if you submitted the reconciliation through EasyFile, you need to also do the correction on the very same channel, which is EasyFile. So it's vice versa. If you submitted on e-filing for a particular period, please also correct on e-filing for that particular period. The EMP 501 declaration is divided into the following main headings. Namely, it's the MIC reconciliation declaration, where you'll complete the employer information, and as well as the My Tax certificates for you to manually capture each individual certificate. Each heading has subheadings. The following subheadings will be available under My Reconciliation Declaration. You'll be required to complete the employer information, which is the employer's demographic information, tax practitioner details, only if this is applicable. So this is where, if the submission is being done on e-filing by a tax practitioner on behalf of that employer, then they would have to complete their details as a tax practitioner. Then you also need to complete the employment tax incentive information, if it is applicable, as well as the financial particulars. Very important to note that red will always indicate that the field is mandatory and there's some information that is missing. So always look out for red indicator, meaning you have not completed something, open the field, complete, and then once everything has successfully been completed, the EMP 501 color will change to blue. Now, how to create the certificates. Just a reminder, on e-filing, you've got up to a max, an employer has got up to a maximum of 50 employee certificates to complete on e-filing. Once the certificate number reaches 51 and above, the reconciliation needs to be done on EasyFile. So this process of adding a certificate on e-filing has to be done for each employee. So each individual employee, you want to follow this process. Select My Tax Certificates, heading at the top, then you're going to select Add. After selecting Add, the certificate will be available on the left-hand side. Select the certificate to open. The IRP5 or IT3As is divided into the following main headings, namely the employee information, so the employee's demographic information, tax number, ID number, address information, etc., the employer information, the tax certificate information, which would include the source codes, as well as the pay-as-you-earn liability for that particular employee. Employment tax incentive, ETI, that will also be if it is applicable for the period. Red indicator, as always, means all the mandatory fields have not been completed for all the fields. So make sure that once you've completed everything, that the system turns to blue. After the certificate is completed, you click on validate. So this is after you've completed all the certificates that you want to do for this recon period. Then you're going to click on validate. You select yes to continue. Read the warning messages always. Do you really want to update all the certificates? So we want that confirmation from you. Then you're going to click on yes. E-filing will then validate all the certificates that you've created. So we're going to look at how many certificates got processed from the ones you created, how many certificates are successful, how many certificates have failed validation. You want to ideally see that all certificates have been validated, all of them are successful, and none of them have failed. When clicking submit form, the system will require you to complete the date of submission if it is not completed. It's also important to click on agree. When you click on agree, you are confirming that you have completed all the information truthfully and it is the correct information. So you say you are agreeing that everything is truthful and correct. You click on agree. Once you've done that, then you're going to click on submit form to submit the reconciliation, which will include the employer information as well as the tax certificates. We will receive the reconciliation in real time on the SARS system, and you'll be able to check your submission. So once the submission has gone through, you will see a message confirming that the return has been successfully submitted. When you click on continue, then automatically that reconciliation is lying on our core system. Now let's look at the pay-as-you-earn dashboard. If you remember, my colleague Fulufelo went into details with regards to the dashboard. The dashboard is also available on e-filing. So the pay-as-you-earn dashboard, as a reminder, is a summary of the recon account for a particular period. A comparison can be made on the certificate values submitted against the EMP 201 and the EMP 501 liabilities. To access the dashboard, select the below options on SARS e-filing. You're going to click on returns at the top, account maintenance on the left, pay as you earn dashboard, and then you're going to select the particular recon period that you want to view a summary of. It's exactly the same as what you saw on EasyFile. You'll be able to select the period for which you want to see the summary of, where you'll be able to see the EMP 201 returns and payments allocated, the certificate values, the EMP 201 and 501 liabilities, the certificates received and payments allocated, and a summary view, as well as the IT 88 information for that summary of that period. So from my side, that's the end of my discussion on how you complete the reconciliation manually through SARS e-filing. And just as a special note, I'd like to wish everyone the best for the remainder of filing season. We are still available to assist you with any of your e-filing and EasyFile queries. So thank you so much. I now hand over to the program director.
Thank you, Martin, Fulufelo, and Ayanda for the informative session and sharing the different platforms available to employers to make the compliance process simpler. I hope everyone in our audience will be better equipped to complete the employee reconciliation. Remember, the due date for the biannual reconciliation is the 31st of October 2022, and non-compliance with this deadline will lead to penalties. This webinar recording will be found on our YouTube channel if you want to go back to what has been shared. We have reached the final session for today. This Q&A session will be facilitated by Mashadi Motwa together with other subject experts. Mashadi Motwa is a manager in taxpayer services in the Northwest region, responsible for the Rustenburg office branch operations. She is dedicated service ambassador with 18 years of service at SARS in various taxpayer engagement roles. Mashadi holds a master's degree in business leadership from the University of South Africa. Over to you, Mashadi.
Thank you, Millicent, and thank you to all our presenters, Fulufelo, Ayanda, Martin, for a fruitful, very interesting webinar. Colleagues, our partners, employers, I hope it's given you clarity for you to be able to comply. Remember, our closing date for our biannual is the 31st of October, 2022. I will be handling the Q&A session together with the panel of experts that will be assisting me to give you more clarity so that we help you to comply. I need to take note and apologize that today we are having challenges with our internet because of the national load shedding, because of the storms that has been talked about in our news. We apologize for the inconvenience. For those who could not continue with the session because of those challenges, please note that our recording will be on the SARS YouTube channel. And all the questions that are posted on our Q&A, if we're unable to answer all of them, please note that they will be posted on our website and all the answers will be there under our frequent asked question. We will be asking questions and mentioning some numbers as part of the routine for all the numbers of returns. We've got EMP 501, meaning that it's our reconciliation for those who are new in this level. We've got EMP 201 that we'll be talking about. That is our monthly one, our monthly return for our employers, to all our new employers. Panel members, I'll be introducing you. Please, when I call your name, switch on your camera. We've got Hillary. Hillary works in our digital channel, which is our former contact center. We've got Tembela. Tembela works in our pay-as-you-earn department, dealing directly with all your queries about the reconciliations. We've got Ayanda. Ayanda is our support manager for all e-filing queries. We will be chatting to her because it's all about her. The center is all about her today. We've got Melanie. Melanie works in our pay-as-you-earn business design system. If you started with us, he gave us context for today and the advancement and the progress of where we come from as pay-as-you-earn, as the journey employers. But if you are not there, Melanie works in a business design engineer. We've got Fulufelo. Fulufelo works in our e-filing department together with Ayanda. They are the team that assist you guys on all our technical and expert issues and queries. Our first question, what do you do if the tax numbers of employees are not issued by SARS before the due date of the 31st of October 2022? As you cannot submit the EMP 501 declaration where the individual tax certificates do not have a tax number. Hilary? Hilary,
thank you, Mashadi. Thank you, Mashadi. So for this question, there is multiple ways for individuals to actually obtain the income tax reference numbers. So we have the option where they can go onto our SARS website, request what is my tax number. We have our chat bot, Luazi, that also they can also utilize that function. And even if they are not registered, what they can do on e-filing, if they register on e-filing, the system will identify that they don't have a tax number and will return the tax number the moment they've created a login name and password. Now, for employers on the other hand, they are able to retrieve that from our SARS EasyFile e-filing using and activating the TRN number, and that will then return the tax number to them for the respective individuals. Thank you, Mashadi.
Thank you. Kindly advise, what could it be the cause of review to keep coming back after you've submitted relevant documentation that matches with the EMP 501 submitted? How does one go about rectifying this to avoid non-compliant tax status? Tembela?
Thank you, Mashadi. An EMP 501 review is required when there is an active verification case in our SARS system. So when the review comes back, it mostly means that there is an open case currently in the system. Remember, the cases have unique case numbers. So there would be a case opened that needs to be investigated and finalized. So it is advised that the required supporting documents are resubmitted in order to finalize the active case. Back to you, Mashadi.
Okay, I have downloaded the latest version of EasyFile from Viewer, but when I click on View, my EMP 501 does not display. When I click my previous EMP 501, they display without any issues. How do I fix this? Fulufelo, take us through.
Thank you once more again, Mashadi. It's a lovely question. I hope I'm going to be able to clarify for the employers. So basically now, as I've covered on my previous presentation, when you try to view the EMP 501 and it doesn't allow you, it gives you an error of the PDF. So what you need to do, you just need to go to Utilities. Under Utilities, you go to System Configuration. Then under System Configuration, you would see that lovely little tick box with the PDF reader that you need to tick. Once you tick it, it will then allow you to be able to view the declaration or the EMP one that you would like to view. Back to you, Mashadi.
Thank you, Fulufelo. My payments amount do not reflect correctly if I refresh the form and click on Accept Data. It also does not allow me to type in my own values because I have ETI. What is the solution to this? Ayanda?
Thank you, Mashadi, for the question. The payments pre-populated on the EMP 501 are for information purposes only and do not necessarily result into the current balances on the pay-as-you-earn, SDL, and UIF accounts. After successful submission of the completed EMP 501 to SARS, the statement of account, which is the EMPSA, or pay-as-you-earn dashboard, can be viewed by the employers to confirm the correct balances currently. And it's also important to note that currently the only employers who are experiencing this issue is the ones that utilized ETI. However, SARS will re-evaluate the EMP 501 pre-populated figures for possible future amendments. And it is one of the small errors that we are looking to fix. It's just that a decision was made not to fix or update EasyFile now, just towards the end of filing season. Thank you, Mashadi.
Thank you, Ayanda. I'm trying to submit my EMP 501 for 2012-02 and 2013-02. I get an error message that say EMP 501 validation error 0001. Your request for EMP 501 reconciliation cannot be processed as you have submitted the required, as you have not submitted the required EMP 201 returns for the reconciliation period. A letter has been sent to you to inform you of the next step. Melanie, take us through.
Thank you, Mashadi. It is important for employers to note that they must submit all the EMP 201 returns for the reconciliation period before they will be able to submit the 501. If you have not submitted your 201s, you will have to first submit those 201s before you can do the reconciliation. However, if you have already submitted the relevant 201s, please refresh the declaration and try again. Back to you, Mashadi.
Thank you, Melanie. I have updated my computer and downloaded the new EasyFile from SARS system. Every time I restore my backup, I must reopen EasyFile after the restore and try to log in onto EasyFile. I must continuously enter the initial registration information into EasyFile, which makes it impossible for me to capture everything. Ayanda?
Thank you, Mashadi, once again. Due to the technical nature of that question, I would recommend that that user emails our support mailbox, which is support@sarsefiling.co.za, and they must ensure that they send us those relevant screenshots of the errors that they're experiencing on EasyFile. We will then be able to engage them, and if need be, we will also have a screen sharing session with them using AnyDesk or Teams viewer, where we are able to navigate them through that technical issue. Thank you, Mashadi.
Our next question. I'm getting an error on EasyFile. Sorry, an error has occurred. The application cannot be installed due to certificate problem. The certificate does not match the install application certificate, does not support the application upgrade, or is invalid. Please contact the application author. Hilary?
Thank you, Mashadi. So the recommendation in these instances is that you need to uninstall all the versions of Java, Adobe Air, as well as your EasyFile from your control panel. Under your programs and features, no Oracle Java should remain. So once you scroll to the bottom and you'll see if there's Zulu ZER also install. SARS has moved away from that. So you need to basically uninstall that as well. Restart your PC once you've done all the uninstallations. That is very important. And then you download EasyFile from our e-filing website. It should then basically be resolved. Thank you, Mashadi.
Thank you, Hilary. I have imported the certificate on EasyFile. EMP 541 is showing in declaration all balance, but when I go to submit to SARS, I have no data to submit. The only option I have in declaration is to print and refresh, which prints perfectly. In submit to SARS, I have to print option, which takes me to utility match. I have tried to make my screen smaller in case I'm missing any prompt, but I cannot seem to find anything to get to my EMP 541 to submit. I also find that the company information screen also reverts to a blank page. Tembela, take us through.
Thank you, Mashadi. So once the declaration has opened, the client must please click on File, Save, and then it will save the declaration on the computer for them to print it. So to submit to SARS, they need to click on File, File and Close. The status will then change to Ready to Submit. Okay, I hope they've got that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question. I'm getting this error on EasyFile, unable to restore selected DB file. Error #3013. Fulufelo?
Thank you once more again, Mashadi. Okay, with regarding to this particular error, it basically means that the database that you're trying to access or the employer that you're trying to access, the database is corrupt. So what do you need to do? Firstly, you need to go to the backup that you have, the latest backup that you have before you receive the error. You need to unzip that backup. Once you have unzipped it, you would be able to access that particular file so that you can be able to see the pay-as-you-earn numbers. Then what you're gonna do, you wanna go to your computer, go to the local disk, then under local disk, you would then go to users, then under users, you open the folder that you logged in as on your computer with your name. Then you would see a folder written app data. If you do not have that folder or it's not reflecting, what you need to do, that means, it basically means that you need to unhide your hidden folders. How do you unhide it? When you are on Windows 10, it basically means you need to click on View on top. Once you click on View, then you click on Unhide Hidden Items. Once you have unhidden, you would be able to see the files. Then you open App Data. Once you have opened App Data, you would find Roaming. Once you open Roaming, you would find EasyFile Employer with the long number. You open that EasyFile with a long number, then you would be able to delete that particular employer's database. So you just look for that pay-as-you-earn number, delete it. Once you deleted it, then you open your EasyFile, you log in, then you go to Utilities. Under Utilities, you would find that option to say Merge DB. Once you click on Merge DB, then you would find that folder that you have unzipped and select the database to merge it to that particular EasyFile so that you can be able to access that particular employer. Thank you, Mashadi. Back to you.
Thank you, Fulufelo. Please note, we are aware that recon submissions are very technical. Sometimes they actually need an expert to be able to assist. Please note the email address that was mentioned by Ayanda to support you. It's at support@sarsefiling.co.za. Please send all your queries with technical issues so that you can be assisted in this journey. Remember, the deadline is the 31st of October, 2022. Our next question. After I submitted our client's IRP5 and EMP 501 recons for 2022-02 tax period, I received the following emails from SARS. Employment tax certificate validation feedback. The EMP 501 reconciliation submitted for the period of 2022-02 has been successfully processed. However, SARS has identified this discrepancy on one or more of the IRP5 and IT3As certificates that you have submitted. A file containing the problematic certificate has been sent to the channel from which it was submitted. You are requested to view or download the type, delimitate file, or the relevant channel. Easy file, the validation calculation file, can be found on the EMP 501 status dashboard. I have checked the IRP5 again, but I could not find any discrepancies. Was this general error on many IRP submitted, or was I the only one who received the above email from SARS? Melanie?
Thank you, Mashadi. So, SARS has implemented additional validations on IRP5 certificates that are submitted, where we compare the information on the certificates with information that we have on our systems. So when an employer receives this message, it means that some of the certificates that you have submitted has failed those validation rules. We have sent the file either to e-filing or easy file, depending on the channel from which you submitted your reconciliation. And that file contains the detail of all the certificates that failed the validation, as well as the reason for the failure. The steps to get to the ETV file is specified in the email that you received. I would recommend that you go to the channel from which the reconciliation was submitted from and download the ETV file so that you can check which certificates are problematic, and then you can fix them. Thank you, Mashadi.
Thank you, Melanie. I only prepare 4 to 5 IRP per annum. I have historically used e-filing on a monthly basis for the submission of my pay-as-you-earn UIF and easy file for the interim and annual returns. Data is kept on an Excel spreadsheet. Would you recommend doing everything on easy file? What are the advantage and the disadvantage? Hilary?
Thank you, Mashadi. So to answer the question, there isn't really any disadvantages to using either the easy file or the e-filing. So e-filing is limited to a maximum of 50 certificates, where you can even import that payroll into that specific system. And then we have easy file, which is where you have a bigger, vast, greater employer that you can have more certificates that you can do the submissions on. Alternatively, you can even use it if you feel more comfortable using easy file or e-filing. It's definitely up to your preference. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the correct easy file version, which is 7.2.9 installed on my computer, and have completed and saved the employee's interim certificate for the 2022-02 period. When I access the declaration, the correct amount reflects, and when I press view, I can see by scrolling down all completed pages of the EMP 501, but there is no option to print this. When I try to submit to SARS, the submission screen does not reflect on any document. The pay-as-you-earn dashboard has an error message that says SARS has no record of a processed EMP 501 for the period of 2022-08. Ayanda?
Thank you, Mashadi. So that error message is coming up because the reconciliation has not been submitted yet. So it's important to note that once the declaration has been opened, they need to click on File and then Save. This will save the declaration on a specific destination folder that they want on their computer. It will be saved in PDF and they'll be able to print it. To submit the recon, they need to click on File, File and Close, and then the status of the declaration will change to Ready to Submit, where they can go ahead and submit that recon. Thank you, Mashadi.
Thank you, Ayanda. That was our last question. Please note all questions will be posted on our Q&A with all the answers. If we did not go to your question today, please do not be disappointed. All questions will be posted on our website, and note that this webinar will be posted on our YouTube channels on SARS TV. Please be on the lookout for all our webinars that are coming through. I'd like to thank you, my partners, the panel of experts who assisted me. And today I am intelligent because I'm gathered with all the international mind of the organization. Thank you very much, our panel of experts. I would like to thank you, everyone who availed themselves for this webinar. Back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Mashadi and colleagues, for your prompt responses to the questions. If your question has not been answered, like Mashadi said, please look out for the frequently asked questions on the SARS website for the response to your question. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our webinar. I would like to thank you all for your time and participation. I hope this webinar has met all your expectations. Before we close, I would also like to thank all the speakers, the panelists, organizers, and the IT team for your contribution to this webinar. Remember, this presentation can be found on the SARS website, and the webinar recording can be accessed on the SARS YouTube channel. Please don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. As soon as you leave the webinar, you'll be directed to the survey. Remember to complete this survey because your participation is highly appreciated. Look out for the next webinar on trusts. Have a wonderful evening and good night.
Fellow South Africans, I'm addressing you.
All your years of paying tax, you still wonder, why does it matter?
It is true that we are facing a grave emergency.
It matters now more than ever. It matters to those who are exposed to harm to keep us away from it. The ones that leave behind all that they love. Your tax matters to them. Those who spend endless hours standing on their feet to care for others. It matters to those who are always at the heart of any crisis and our future generations. It matters to those who put so much love into giving selflessly to each and every family living on the breadline. It matters to all of us. To all taxpayers, pay your fair share. Do it for your nation. Your tax matters.